Today I'm behind the wheel of a brand new 2021 BMW X1. Now the X1 is the smallest SUV in BMW's very crowded SUV lineup. There's the X1, X2, X3, X4, X5, X6, X7, and the X8 is coming in the near future. Now in 2020, BMW already refreshed the X1 pretty significantly, so for 2021, there's not a whole lot of changes. So is this brand new BMW X1 any good? Well, keep watching and find out. Before I get started, I want to thank Laurel BMW of Westmont. They made this video possible. So if you're in the market for a used or used BMW, please check them out. Their information is on the screen and in the description of this video. All right, I'm behind the wheel. Let's see how good this brand new X1 is and how it drives. Now to start out, I want to talk about the presence of this X1 because I think it's really good. When I approached this X1, it made me feel like this was a bigger SUV than it is. And also, I felt like it's more stylish than the bigger brother, the X3. Now in 2020, BMW did refresh the X1 pretty significantly, especially on the outside. The kidney grills were made bigger, the headlights are more slanted, and the bumpers were changed, and there's a few other things mixed in. Now, when the X1 first debuted, the side profile, the overall car was more like a lifted hatchback. It no longer looks that way. It looks like a SUV. And I really like the aluminum roof rails, and they're matched with aluminum window surrounds. They're not chrome, they're actually aluminum. And you have some door garnish on the bottom that is also painted aluminum. And I think that works really well. And then take a look at these alloy wheels. I think they really fit everything, right? So I think this X1 really looks good. Now, if you move to the back, kind of the same way. You have a very squared off shape, a low stance, a low wide stance. You have a shark fin antenna, a very big spoiler on top, privacy glass. And look at the LED taillights. They're huge, right? And they were designed that way to kind of trick you into thinking this car is bigger than it is. And look at the bottom, right? I really like those dual chrome exhaust tips. They're not small by any means. They're very big and very, rounded tip and very thick. They have a good presence, and I think that looks good too. So overall on the outside, I think BMW did an amazing job with the exterior on this X1. I really enjoy it. Wow, that wasn't bad. That wasn't bad at all. So I had an opportunity to accelerate full throttle, going 30 to 60 miles per hour. And that was pretty lively. There's only one engine option. It's a 2-liter turbocharged engine, and it's producing 228 horsepower and about 260 pound-feet of torque. It's basically the identical engine to the base engine in the X3, except it's detuned. The X3 gets 20 more horsepower. However, with that said, it's the same amount of torque. It's mated to the same 8-speed automatic. And that acceleration was pretty lively. I've read 0 to 60 around 6.3 seconds, which isn't bad. Keep in mind, this is the smallest SUV from BMW's lineup, and it still gets a terrific base engine that actually makes the drive actually quite fun. And this 8-speed automatic is doing a terrific job. I remember when I reviewed the X3 and X5, the shifts were really crisp and smooth. I didn't even know it was shifting. And you know what? I get that same feeling inside this X1. It's a really good transmission, and I really like this combination, this powertrain combination. It's a good one. Now, what's also smooth is this suspension. I'm going on pretty smooth surfaces right now, but overall, I get a good balance of comfort and sportiness, and that's what you want in a BMW, right? BMWs are known for that engaging and thrilling ride, even with their SUVs. And that's what I get a sense of. I mean, the suspension is comfortable. It's a little bit stiffer than, say, the real soft suspensions out there. And that's because BMW wants to make sure that you actually have a fun time driving this SUV. And you know what? Suspension is good. Now, as I came to a stop, the brakes are also good. I find if you're slowing down from low speeds,
The pedal is a little bit touchy, right? So you got to be careful when you're pressing down. You want to get that smooth braking feel, right? But when you're coming to a stop pretty hard, you don't get that twitchiness. So I do like that. The brakes overall are good, but you got to watch out when you're braking slowly. Now, reflecting on this cabin, I think this is a good one, especially this infotainment screen. Now, this screen is not as large as the ones that you find in the X3 or the X5, but this was upgraded back in 2020, and this is now an 8.8 inch, and I really like it. It's a touchscreen, so very responsive. Also very high resolution, no lag whatsoever. And I like how you could just touch through it. The interface is very easy to understand. You go to home, there's a whole bunch of menus that you could select, right? And inside each one, pretty easy to understand. And if you didn't want to use touch, you know, BMW also gives you a controller, right? Like a big scrolling knob that you can scroll and point left and right, push down. There's also a few quick navigation buttons. That setup is really good. BMW nailed down their infotainment screen. The whole system, iDrive, they just nailed it down. So many other luxury cars, they're still trying to figure out their touchpad system or like a mouse system or even their touch interface. Just doesn't work for some reason. It's just complicated and it doesn't work, but BMW absolutely nailed it. Now, if you move down a little bit, just like all BMWs, there's like a safety button that you could press to view your safety systems. And on this X1, you're equipped with a front collision warning system, pedestrian warning, lane departure warning. Those are all standard. Unfortunately, with adaptive cruise control, that's not standard. That's something that you have to add on as an optional feature. But this X1 is equipped with sensors all around, which is nice. There's a 360 view, like sensor view, not a camera view. There's a sensor view. And also you get a very big and high resolution bright view of what's behind you. So overall, this X1 is pretty safe. Now, as for the radio controls, I mean, it looks really simple and almost dated in a way, but you know, those presets, they're not standard presets. They're not presets that you find from like 30 years ago. They're actually touch. You could see when I'm scrolling my finger around, right? You could actually see the response in the screen. And those presets are almost like favorites. So you can preset like a certain menu item to a certain number. So that's really cool, right? And underneath that, the dual zone climate control, pretty easy to figure out. You have two knobs for temperature, you know, fan control. You do have heated seats in here. So pretty easy to figure out too. It's not too complicated. I know that this part right here, climate control and your media center, I guess, media control, this doesn't look very elegant, but it's actually pretty easy to use and pretty easy to figure out. Now, as for the gauge cluster, it's kind of mixed. Old school, new school. Old school in a way, you do have an analog speedometer and tachometer on top. Now, on the bottom, there are some integrated LED screens. Now, in terms of scrolling, like information, like a trip computer and stuff like that, that part is very small and there's not a whole lot of function. So I'll agree that that's a little dated. But there's also another screen on the right side that tells you some essential information like your miles per gallon, right? What your battery charge is, your clock, and a few other things that's down there. So it's kind of mixed. Obviously, if this whole thing was totally digital, it would be better, but I think this works. Now, normally, when I do car reviews, I always say the same thing about Hondas. And I know Honda is not a luxury car manufacturer, but Hondas are magicians at generating interior space and cargo room. So if you look at a lot of their SUVs, they're enormous for what they should be. And BMW did the same thing with this X1. BMW really went all out to maximize cargo room and passenger space inside this subcompact SUV. Now, if you look at the dimensions, this X1 is a couple inches narrower and 10 inches shorter than the bigger brother X3. Keep that in mind, 10 inches shorter. However, if you look at the overall passenger room inside this X1, it's identical to the X3. Identical. So think about it. BMW was able to generate the same amount of cargo room in here as the bigger brother, the X3. That's pretty amazing. And if you look at maximum cargo room, it's only about 4 cubic feet smaller in total. So the cargo room in here is also very big. BMW did a really good job. So let's look at the trunk. So inside the trunk, you can see it's pretty massive, right? There's a good amount of space behind the second row. On the left side, there's like a huge cubby hole. On the right side, there's a net, a 12V outlet. On the bottom, below the cover, you do have a lot of hidden storage. On top, you do have a privacy cover. Now, if you remove all that, you want to generate more space, fold down the second row, and as you can see, there is plenty of space, right? So BMW did an amazing job with the cargo room, with the space inside overall. And if you move to the second row, I'm 5'10", and I still have, you know, like 3 inches of legroom left behind my driving position, about 2 to 3 inches of headroom. And if you opt for it, you can slide the seats and recline, which is really nice. Unfortunately, that feature is optional. It's not standard, but if you do get it, it's quite nice. And up here, plenty of room. At least 3 to 4 inches of headroom, right? Plenty of shoulder room. Hip room is okay too, because the way the center console is designed is not hitting my legs or my hips in any way. So overall, it feels good. 4 adults in here, no problems at all. 5 adults, that's gonna be a problem, but 4 adults, no problem. So overall, BMW nailed it with size. Now, I already talked about the suspension. The steering and steering feel complemented really well. The steering wheel looks kind of bland, but the 10 and 2 spot is extra bolstered, extra thick, so it does feel good when you're grabbing a 10 and 2 spot. But the steering itself is really nice. I like it. It's a good combination. It's precise, and it has a decent weight to it, so it complements this suspension really well. It kind of gives you like a lively feel, yet you know, a controlled feel as well. What's also good about this X1 is BMW wasn't stingy with USB ports. You know, I don't know why USB ports is such a thing for a lot of manufacturers, and they're stinging upon it, but not so in this X1. Rear passengers get 2 USB-C ports along with a couple of vents, so that's nice. Also up front, there's a USB port right underneath at your fingertips, and inside the armrest, you get another one. So there's plenty of USB ports, right? Again, I don't know why luxury manufacturers tend to be like stingy with USB ports. Also, other features that you get in here, you get HomeLink buttons, you get a giant panoramic sunroof on top, you get power and auto dimming mirrors, memory seats, right? The memory seat position is on the bottom of the seat. So you have to remember, most manufacturers now put it on the door panel. So you might look at it and you're like, oh, there's no memory seats. No, there is. It's just on the bottom of the seat. And I mentioned about the heated seats. You get a power liftgate in the back. So this X1 is pretty well equipped, although a lot of these things I mentioned are optional features. Now, like most cars, this X1 does have driving modes. So of course you have the usual sport, and then also eco and comfort. Now, sport usually just tweaks the throttle to make it more aggressive. Sometimes you could live in sport mode. Sometimes you just can't because it's just too annoying. So let me set it. I'm in sport mode now. So let's see how it is. You know what? BMW tweaked this sport mode so that the first few gears, like going to second and third, still shifts pretty quickly, but then it starts holding the revs like once you're higher gears, like third or fourth, it then holds it a little bit longer. So now that I'm up to speed, I'm going about 45 miles per hour, and I'm expecting it to shift, and it just doesn't shift. So a little annoying, but it's not too bad, not too aggressive, so that's the good thing. And overall, because this X1 is very quiet, at least well insulated under the hood, I don't really hear the engine a whole lot, but I will say that you know what, living in comfort is probably your best bet. Now, overall cabin noise is okay, although I do feel like I hear quite a bit from the road. So these tires, these Pirelli tires, think they're a little bit loud. I hear a little bit of drone from the tires. Wind noise is okay. Cars passing by slightly. So overall, quiet ride, but not the quietest in this class or not the quietest luxury SUV. Now this engine does come with auto start stop functionality, and there is a physical button right next to the engine start stop button in case you want to disable it. It's kind of hidden, but it's there. But it's almost non-existent. I can't even tell if the engine is stopping and starting. It's really smooth right off the line. So if the engine is starting back up, it's so smooth that it's almost, you almost can't tell. So it's a really good one. Normally engine auto start stop, they're quite annoying and they're a little bit laggy, but not this one. So this is actually a pretty good one. Now, as for driving position and visibility, both are good. Now, visibility could be better. The front is enormous. Front is really good, really good. Side is also good, and the mirrors are close to you. So really good side visibility. And blind spot is also good, very good. The only thing is the rear visibility. The window is a little bit small. With the headrest up, they do block you, especially the middle headrest, which I have down right now. But if that was up, it really blocks your view. So the rear visibility is just okay. Now, driving position is not bad too. This is on the lower side, but it's still SUV, so you're sitting a little bit elevated, but not too much of a commanding view. But combined with visibility, good. And what's also good are these seats. These seats, pretty comfortable. Now the bottom cushion, a little bit stiff, but isn't too bad. And the bolstering on the bottom cushion isn't cutting into my thighs, which is good. Now the back is really comfortable, really wide. It is holding me and it feels good. One of the weird changes for 2021 is the sport seats. You used to get it as like a standalone package. Now you have to add it in with like a M Sport package, which normally with sports seats, I'm not a fan of because they're just too aggressive. And I'm guessing it's the same with the X1, although I haven't tested it yet. Later on, I will. But overall, these standard seats are quite nice. I don't think you need to upgrade to sport seats. I think they are holding me in quite well, and I feel pretty comfortable. Next up, let me talk about trim levels and pricing and give you my final thoughts on this brand new X1.
As for trim levels, the BMW X1 has two. The S-Drive 28i, which is front-wheel drive, and the X-Drive 28i, which is all-wheel drive. Starting price is at $35,400. Now, the one I drove today is very well equipped. The premium package comes with things like navigation, heads-up display, heated seats and heated steering wheel, panoramic roof, among other things. And there are other optional features that were included as well, such as premium audio, adaptive cruise control, parking assistance, sliding and reclining rear seats, and wood trim. Grand total for this X1 as configured comes in over $48,000. To conclude, the 2021 BMW X1 defies logic with its incredible interior space and power under the hood. The X1 looks great on the outside and has a very nice interior. The new infotainment screen along with iDrive is fantastic and very easy to use. The X1 drives very nice and provides comfortable suspension, steering, and lively acceleration. There's also plenty of USB ports within, and the engine auto start-stop functionality is almost instantaneous. The bad include the info screen inside the gauge cluster not being very useful, Android Auto is not available, and blind spot monitoring is also not available, which is a head scratcher. And finally, most of the niceties inside this X1 comes as an optional feature or package, which drives up the low base price. I'm giving the 2021 BMW X1 a score of 96. To learn more about it and to see where it ranks, check out driversonlyrankings.com. Hit the like and subscribe to the channel and check out these other videos.